The matchup has been talked about since last winter. The four hottest Thunderboats on the '84 tour will finally meet. The Squire Shop, driven by this man, Mickey Riemann, is coming off his 11th all-time victory after beating the field in Syracuse, New York. The turbine-powered Tosti Asti, driven by Steve Reynolds, this sled came back after suffering sponson damage on the rough waters of Onondaga Lake in Syracuse. Miami winner, the Miss Budweiser, driven by this man, Jim Kropfeld, has returned to action after a broken propeller sidelined the Bud in New York. And the new turbine-powered Atlas Van Lines, driven by defending national champ Chip Hanauer, will make its debut today. The fastest unlimited hydroplane field ever is coming up.
This is the Budweiser's Thunder on the Ohio 6, brought to you by Firestone, offering master car care service at nearly 2,000 locations nationwide.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Don Poyer, and welcome to Evansville, Indiana, for Budweiser's Thunder on the Ohio 6. Much like Syracuse, New York, 2 weeks ago, we already have a major development taking place before the race day begins. During testing this morning, the Miss Tosti Asti, driven by Steve Reynolds, was out in turn 4 when it suddenly lost the blade on its propeller, ripping away from the strut, that being the propeller shaft, and severely damaging the bottom of the boat. It caught fire momentarily. Steve Reynolds had to jump out of the boat into the water. He did burn his left hand somewhat. He was immediately brought in an ambulance boat and taken to a nearby ambulance to be attended to. We are told that his hand will be all right. He was bandaged, and he went down immediately to take a look at the damage on his boat. Jim Hendrick is down there now. Let's see if we can get a comment.
Okay, Don, Steve Reynolds is with us now. Steve, right on the turn, what happened?
Well, we lost one full blade of the three-bladed prop, Jim, and you know that vibration transmits all the way up to the boat, and it just raised havoc as it moves all the way up the shaft.
You dove out of the boat. Why'd you do that?
The reason I dove out is I wanted immediate attention. The boat, to me, was in danger of sinking. There was a little fire on it. We extinguished the fire, hooked the safety wires or the ropes up to the boat so they could tow it back to the beach, and then I just wanted to get out of the way.
Okay, now it's a repair job before the next race and take care of that burned hand.
Yeah, I got a slight burn, and we've got about a week and a half of repair work.
You're not the only one who has a problem. I understand now the Atlas Van Lines has had a problem, and Don Poyer's down there. Don?
Jim, you're right. There was a problem this morning. Now, you were out testing and lost a small part of the blade on your prop?
Actually, we lost two small parts. Both tips, we were running a two-blade propeller, and both tips came off the propeller. So basically the same thing that happened to Tosti. We were just a little more fortunate as that happened on both blades, which kept it somewhat unilateral.
All right, now on the positive sense, you set a national record with your 140.818 qualifying speed with a boat right out of the wrapper. That's got to be encouraging.
It's encouraging, but that's all it is. You know, we have never raced this boat, and going into a boat race with a untested, you know, as far as a race boat, we have to take it easy. And I'd say the smart money's got to be on the Budweiser or the Squire, and we just hope we can have a good, respectable day.
Okay. Humbly put by Chip Hanauer. Let's go now to Jim and Heat 1A's rundown.
Boy, Don, you talk about action. We've got it all ready before the race even starts. Now let's check the lineups for Heat 1A. Checking the lineup for Heat 1A in competition will be the Raven Tire. Jerry Hopp checked in at 105.5, the minimum qualifying speed. From Madison, Indiana, Chet's Music, driven by Todd Yawling, 111.6, his qualifying time. From the Seattle area, it will be George Johnson driving the Executone Telephone, qualifying speed 119.7. The Renault will be driven by Miller Irwin from Coral Gables, Florida. Qualified his boat the fastest this year, 123.8. And the boat to beat, I believe, in this heat, the Squire Shop, driven by Mickey Riemann from Palm Desert, California. His qualifying speed, 131 even. And that's the lineups for Heat 1A here at Evansville, Indiana today. To pick a favorite, I'd have to give it to Squire Shop, as I said with Mickey Riemann, because of past performance. But then again, the Executone Telephone, the Miss Renault, they've been coming on strong. Chet's Music here in Syracuse ran the fastest stock Allison ever ran. So really, it's a toss-up when it comes to unlimited hydroplane racing. Now let's go up the Don and check the action for Heat 1B.
Jim, the fan plan is no longer in existence, but you wouldn't know it by the draw for Heat 1B. It's quite a rundown. Let's take a look. Here are the boats. First of all, Risley's Audio Video, a local sponsor. The U-40 is the boat, Scott Pierce the driver, qualifying at 114.7 miles per hour. The Budweiser with Jim Kropfeld, driving out of Cincinnati, 117.9 miles per hour. After those repairs, they're back. American Speedy Printing, Ron Snyder the driver, qualifying at 120.7 miles per hour. And the new Atlas Van Lines, the turbine-powered hull, will make its debut here in Evansville, Indiana. It qualified at a national record 140.818 miles per hour with Chip Hanauer at the wheel. And as we told you earlier, the Tosti Asti suffered damage during testing today. They won't be racing. They won't be in 1B. We thought it would be a three-boat race between the Tosti, the Budweiser, and the new Atlas Van Lines. But instead, more like a two-boat race with probably Ron Snyder and the American Speedy Printing in the hunt, waiting for somebody to break and maybe pick up some more points. That's how it looks for 1A and 1B here in Evansville, Indiana. So stay with us. Hydroplane racing coming up. Don Poyer along with Jim Hendrick, Evansville, Indiana, the shores of the Ohio River. Let's look at the Gladiators now for Heat 1A. Jerry Hopp out of Seattle, his first race in 1984 aboard the Raven Tires. Todd Yarling, co-rookie of the year in 1983, driving a new boat, Chet's Music Shop. George Johnson, the Miss Executone Telephones. They've done some work on the systems in that boat. It's running better now. E. Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault qualified at 123 miles per hour, running much better than the first two races. And Mickey Riemann, the Union-based Squire Shop, qualifying at 131 miles per hour. Again, the lineup now for 1A, the Squire Shop, Renault, Executone Telephones, Chet's Music, and Raven Tires. Here we go with Heat 1A. And as they race now for the starting line, it's the Squire Shop on the inside. In lane 2 is the Miss Renault and Milner Irvin. Lane 3, Chet's Music with Todd Yarling. In lane 4, it's going to be the Executone Telephones with George Johnson. Here they come down towards the west turn here in Heat 1A in Evansville, Indiana. Mickey Riemann in that familiar spot in lane number 1. He loves to take the shortest route around the course, as he puts it, here on this 2-mile course. Second place, Miss Renault, you see going out of the screen. Good race right there for third and fourth as George Johnson goes way wide in the Executone Telephones. Back to the leader, and that's the Squire Shop, the winner of the race up in Syracuse, New York, just 2 weeks ago. Mickey Riemann qualifying at 131 miles per hour on this 2-mile course. Milner Irvin, second place, the Miss Renault. Third place, George Johnson, Executone Telephones. And fourth place, Todd Yarling in the Chet's Music Shop. And here comes the Squire Shop into the east turn again. Mickey Riemann, a boat that won in New York, and they've done some work on the rudder. They've had a little problem there, but they've worked it out pretty well here in Evansville, Indiana. He's going down the main straightaway with a slight dog leg to the left. It's not a perfectly straight straightaway coming down this area. Second place, the Renault. Average speed now 115 miles per hour for the Squire Shop. Third place, Executone Telephones. Mickey Riemann in the lead and in control as he comes down to the west turn here on the Ohio River. We'll have 2 races on the Ohio. Next week we go on up to Madison, Indiana. Mickey Riemann in the Squire Shop. Executone Telephones in third place. And he's having a pretty good race with that man on the inside. You saw his rooster tail, that being Chet's Music. Here's Raven Tire, Jerry Hopp, just trying to keep that boat running and pick up some points in his first race of 1984. Chet's Music on the right. In fourth place on the left is Executone Telephones and George Johnson. And that's the first place boat, Mickey Riemann in the Squire Shop. 3-year-old boat, but is doing very, very well here now for the Squire Shop and owner Bob Stile. Jim Harvey, the crew chief. Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault coming down in second place here in Evansville, Indiana. The Thunder on the Ohio 6, but look at the race now for third and fourth place. Executone in that bright blue and white, dark blue boat. George Johnson, a driver. Raven Tires and Jerry Hopp staying alive, keeping in the hunt. First race for that boat here in 1984. Back to Mickey Riemann in full control. That boat running very, very well now. the Miss Renault. They've gone back to the basics for that boat, trying to get it toned down, riding a little better on choppy water. There's your race for third and fourth place. Going down the back chute, it's rather narrow there, but the acceleration has to go to the Executone Telephones. However, the position as they go in now to the east turn has to go to Todd Yarling and Chet's Music Shop. Look at this race as they come out of that west turn now and they go down the main straightaway. Executone on the outside. George Johnson driving on the inside. Todd Yarling, who gained a lot of respect when they were racing in New York just a couple of weeks ago. Executone Telephones on the outside. Mickey Riemann extending his lead now as he goes down the back chute ahead of that man, Milner Irvin, and the Miss Renault. But a great battle for third and fourth place. And again, just like New York, these two, boy, they're getting to know each other quite well. They're going deck to deck again. Raven Tire, Jerry Hopp, keeping things rolling, keeping that Allison engine running very well to get some points here. And, of course, it looks like the leader, the Squire Shop with Mickey Riemann, could lap Jerry Hopp here on this particular lap. Average speed now for the Squire Shop, 115.6. Very consistent speeds for Mickey Riemann, 115, around 116. Back to that great lead, and again, the position goes to Todd Yarling. He turns very well. At first, they thought of, well, maybe he had a lot to learn about turning, but he's doing a great job here. He did well in New York as well, handling that boat. Nice little piece of driving here. Look as he swings out wide and forces George Johnson to go wide as well here on this dog leg down the main chute. That's the battle for third and fourth place. Executone Telephone and Chet's Music Shop. There's the second place boat, Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault, handling a lot better now. They decided to go back to the beginning where they were in Miami when it ran well prior to that race down in Florida. Executone Telephone. George Johnson saying this year he's having a lot of fun because he's not only trying to keep the boat running in the races, but having a little fun racing, and he's doing that right now. Look at that picture, deck to deck between Chet's Music Shop and George Johnson. This could be almost a video replay of the race in New York when they went hand in hand for 5 straight laps before George Johnson finally eking out a victory and picking up the win ahead of Chet's Music. Again, here they are. Chet's Music on the inside, George Johnson on the outside, that Lucero designed boat on the outside. John Stardicker built that brand new boat for Chet's Music on the inside, so you have 2 brand new boats racing here in Evansville, Indiana. Oh, it appears now that George Johnson has widened his lead over that boat, Chet's Music, in 4th place. And here comes your winner of Heat 1A, the Squire Shop with Mickey Riemann, picking up another 400 points. And second place goes to Milner Irvin, the Miss Renault. And here's how the points were distributed. Squire Shop with 400. Renault second place. Executone Telephones third. Chet's Music coming in 4th. And Raven Tires in 5th place. Let's go down to Jim Hendrick and the winner.
Now, right now, they've just come in and they're talking over between the chief of the crew, of course, Jim Harvey, and driver, of course, Mickey Riemann.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, how was it out there?
Oh, it's a little lumpy out there, but it's usually lumpy with the big 3,000-pound boats. I mean, 3-ton boats. It gets a little lumpy.
Jim, you must have been happy to see him nail that start the way he did.
Well, he's been doing a pretty good job of that. We had a game plan to follow in this heat, and it worked according to schedule.
Okay, Don, happy winners, of course, of Heat 1A.
And Jim, we have a crowd of better than 85,000 on hand today. More racing for them and for you in just a minute. Don Poyer along with Jim Hendrick here in Evansville, Indiana. It looks like Jim has jumped on one of the boats. Jim?
Don, you may not recognize him, but this is Ron Snyder. Ron, I guess you'd have to be considered an underdog with the competition.
Well, we've been there before, Jim. We'll just go out and do our best.
Okay, now you've got the turbine, you got the Budweiser. What are your plans for this heat? To sit in 3rd slot?
Well, you know, it's up to Chip and Jim what slot they want out there. Whatever they pick, I'll take what's left over and give her everything she's got.
Going to play it safe here, Don, in the first heat, trying to get some points for the final. Back up to you.
All right, James, get out of there. You're going to get wet. Here's the rundown for 1B. Atlas Van Lines, American Speedy Printing, the Budweiser at 117.9, and Risley's Express at 114 miles per hour. Here are the men in the trenches. A close-up look at them. Scott Pierce out of Seattle, Washington, and Risley's Express. Jim Kropfeld and the Budweiser, a miracle that they're here after the damage suffered in New York. Also Ron Snyder of American Speedy Printing, always in the hunt. A great driver, Ron Snyder out of Ohio. And Chip Hanauer with a new boat, the turbine-powered Atlas Van Lines, qualifying at 140. Oh, but wait a minute. Chip Hanauer isn't in the cockpit of the Atlas Van Lines. Oh, they're going to lift the boat out of the water. Evidently, they couldn't fire up that turbine engine. Oh, what a disappointment. Setting a national record in qualifying, and now he can't race in this 1B as it begins with a Budweiser in lane 1, American Speedy Printing in lane 2, and Risley's on the outside. There you see on the right of the screen, just coming into the picture is the Budweiser with Jim Kropfeld at the wheel. In the middle of your screen, American Speedy Printing and Ron Snyder. Coming around on the outside in third place is Risley's Express. This could shape into one of those great races between the Bud and the American Speedy Printing. They did it last week, 2 weeks ago, rather, back in New York. And look at this, American Speedy Printing and Snyder on the outside, going against Kropfeld on the inside and the Miss Budweiser. They go down that narrow back chute here on the Ohio River in Evansville, Indiana. American Speedy Printing, Snyder out of Piqua, Ohio, holding on to first place as he comes around in lane 2 on the east turn. The Budweiser on the inside with great position is Jim Kropfeld out of Cincinnati, Ohio. A couple of natives out of the state of Ohio having a lot of fun here in Heat 1B, about to complete lap number 1 here in Evansville, Indiana. American Speedy Printing, first place after lap number 1. There's the third place boat, the Risley's Express with Scott Pierce. As they head now down towards the west turn, you see some of the 85,000 people here in Evansville watching this race, the 6th annual Thunder on the Ohio. American Speedy Printing. This boat, the last really competitive boat that's still in the conventional design with the driver behind the boat. He's still got somewhat of a lead over the Budweiser. Remember now, the Budweiser, they've had to really try to dial it in again after that severe damage up in Syracuse, New York, where they lost a blade on a propeller, and they had to change that. They had to change the design underneath. They had to change the rudder, the prop shaft, many, many changes, and they've still got to get the boat dialed in. Now a healthy lead for American Speedy Printing as Ron Snyder puts his foot to the floor. Scott Pierce here in third place on the Risley's Express. Ron Snyder, an acoustical contractor by trade. You see the Budweiser there coming up almost deck to deck now with American Speedy Printing. Jim Kropfeld in his third year with the Budweiser crew and working for Bernie Little. Here they come after lap number 2. Still American Speedy Printing in first place. Third place back to Scott Pierce. Risley's Express. Speed 108 miles per hour for the American Speedy, 109 for the Budweiser. So you can see that he's coming up. Back to that west turn. Snyder coming around the outside, Rookie of the Year back in 1976 while driving the Miss Madison and the Miss Budweiser. Jim Kropfeld, Rookie of the Year, a couple of years ago for Bernie Little in the Miss Budweiser. You've got two of the finest drivers in the business right here. You can't help but wonder what it would be like if the Atlas Van Lines would have fired up for this Heat 1B in Evansville. We'll try to get a report on the Atlas Van Lines after Heat 1B. But again, it's the Budweiser. Kropfeld and Snyder and the American Speedy Printing having a good old time here on the Ohio River as they come around the east turn and come down the main chute for lap number 3. Allison Turbos, that's the engine for American Speedy Printing. The Griffin engine for the Budweisers. They come down that dogleg main straightaway. Average speed, 108 miles per hour for American Speedy, 109 for the Budweiser. So again, Kropfeld is inching ever so closely. Third place to Scott Pierce and Risley's Express. Fred Leland-owned boat, all aluminum boat. And here's your battle for first and second place into the west turn here on the Ohio River. Jim Kropfeld, who owns a muffler company in the town of Cincinnati, Ohio. And you've got on the outside a man who is an acoustical contractor on the outside, making a lot of noise here on this Sunday afternoon in Evansville. The Budweiser, as you've seen, has moved slightly ahead of American Speedy Printing. Third place, Scott Pierce trying to move up. Oh, look at the skid fin dig in for the Budweiser as it comes around now, that east turn, and coming down towards the main straightaway. Snyder holding his own, however, staying on the outside, keeping the RPMs up, trying to stay close to this man, Jim Kropfeld, one of the finest in the business. There's no denying it. This Budweiser boat will be retired at the end of this year, and right now it looks like he's in second place with Snyder holding on to a slim first place lead. Again back into the turn, and coming out of the east turn is Scott Pierce and the Risley's Express. The U40, Scott Pierce. Again, the Budweiser. American Speedy Printing on the outside. Snyder, an official. When he is not racing, he has done a lot of officiating for the Unlimiteds. Right now, he's got his hands full with a very powerful boat. And they're coming up now here on the last lap of the afternoon in Heat 1B. The Budweiser looks like it's going to be a drag race. Let's face it, they're both holding position now as they go into the east turn. The Budweiser with the position, however. Let's see now if Snyder can handle that baby and get it around and keep up the speed and be able to make it a drag race as they go past the exit buoy and down the main straightaway. Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. It is nothing but a quarter-mile final. Coming down the straightaway, the Budweiser gets the win. American Speedy Printing second, Scott Pierce third. When you look at the numbers, here's how they came out. Budweiser with 400 points. American Speedy Printing coming in second. Risley's Express third. And Atlas Van Lines did not start. If you were to draw a line, an imaginary line across the finish, there's your margin of victory for the Budweiser. Looks like more than a boat length, but by a clock, it's only 0.6 of a second. Let's go down with Jim Hendrick and the winning camp of Budweiser.
Don, right now we're down on the end of the dock. Here's a happy owner and a happy driver. Let's talk to the driver first. Jim, that's close.
Well, it was a good race. You know, the Atlas wasn't there, and Ron and I, we ran to the best of our abilities, and we kind of took it easy. The water was a little rough.
Make you nervous, Bernie?
Oh, yeah, I'm walking the dock pretty good saying, get on it, man. He must have heard me, though, there when he come around the corner, huh?
Long time still to go, and these guys are happy they won Heat 1B. Back to you, Don.
Atlas Van Lines just got word they're going to be in Heat 2A. They've got to hurry if they're going to change the engine. Let's get a word from Chip Hanauer.
Chip, what's the problem?
We've got, this engine doesn't fire. We're going to have to make an engine change. We got about 10 minutes.
So while concern fills the minds of those in the Atlas camp, it's a beautiful afternoon for Mickey Riemann and company. Don Poyer along with Jim Hendrick on the shores of the Ohio River. As you see, the Atlas Van Lines did indeed get that engine changed in time for Heat 2A. Now, remember in our last race, Ron Snyder gave the Budweiser all he wanted. Jim Hendrick is down in the pits now.
Well, Don, before the race, we had the masked marvel. Now we can see what he looks like. Pretty close out there.
Well, you know, Jim, the name of this game is to put a show on for the spectators that paid to get in here. So Cropfield and I both being Buckeyes, and since Atlas didn't come out and give us either one any threat, we thought we'd go out and have fun.
Well, don't say that too soon. She'll be back the next heat, maybe.
Well, okay, but we set off the exit pin on the last lap for the checkered. Go for it. So the only thing is he beat me to it, so the next time it's my turn.
A drag race, Don. Back to you.
All right, here's your rundown for Heat 2A. The Squire Shop, a winner already today. Executone Telephones, American Speedy Printing, Raven Tires, and the Atlas Van Lines. Atlas Van Lines coming out wide on the course past the pits. Chip Hanauer looking back at the engine of that new turbine-powered boat, trying to indicate something to his crew as he goes by. He has the boat running. We'll simply have to wait and see. There's the Squire Shop preparing for the start here of Heat 2A. Mickey Riemann in the cockpit. Saw him earlier walking his dog back in the pits. Ron Snyder, American Speedy Printing. You see the yellow caution flag that is always up before the start of the race. And they'll work around that east turn now as all 5 boats prepare for the start. Executone Telephones nearest to the camera, right next to the Atlas Van Lines. Squire Shop on the inside. American Speedy Printing in lane number 2. There's the Atlas Van Lines in lane 3. The Executone, there he is going by George Johnson. Here's the start of Heat 2A. Coming down into the west turn, it's Mickey Riemann in lane number 1. American Speedy Printing and Ron Snyder in lane number 2. Atlas Van Lines backaways in lane number 3. George Johnson and the Executone in lane number 4 in third place as they go into that turn. The Squire Shop, Mickey Riemann once again in familiar territory, not only in lane number 1, but in first place. Mickey Riemann and the Squire Shop down the back chute. Second place, American Speedy Printing and Ron Snyder. There's the third place boat, George Johnson and the Executone Telephones with over 4 tons of water flying up into the air out of those rooster tails. Mickey Riemann, skid fin digging in, riding on that right spot as he comes around the east turn and comes around to complete lap number 1. Raymond is really turning it on. Mickey doing a great job of driving here in the first lap. Lap speed 128.6 miles per hour. Oh, he's moving. Here's George Johnson moving around the outside of American Speedy Printing on lap number 1. So the Executone Telephone running very well here in Heat 2A as you watch Raven Tires, Jerry Hopp the driver in that hole. Mickey Riemann out on that somewhat choppy water now on the west turn. The boat 3 years old, but new in the camp for Bob Style and Squire Shop. George Johnson, Executone Telephones. You see the big air intake above him, directly behind the cockpit. Oh, here's Atlas Van Lines coming back into the pits. Evidently something wrong again with that brand new boat. What a shame in their debut in competitive racing after setting a national course record of better than 140 miles per hour during qualifying. Here comes the lead boat though, Mickey Riemann. Now calling Seattle his home as he's driving it home for Bob Stiles' Squire Shop, the Union Bay Squire Shop. Speed for Mickey slowing down somewhat at 118 miles per hour. Executone, second place, George Johnson in a brand new Lucero design and built hull out of Seattle. George Johnson, one of the part owners for that boat. There's the third place boat, Ron Snyder, back a ways. He may have some problems, not driving quite as hard as he had earlier against the Budweiser. You see the Squire Shop again in the lead, Mickey Riemann in control. Going down the back chute, some of the drivers feel it's a little narrow out there in the back chute, but they love this course. Generally speaking, they all are very happy with it. Ron Snyder out of Piqua, Ohio, he likes it here, doesn't mind the dog leg down the main chute. Again, back to Mickey Riemann in first place. That boat qualified at better than 131 miles per hour. A very, very good boat. Had some spots and work done after the Miami race before New York, and it has performed admirably. That boat coming off a victory in Syracuse, New York just 2 weeks ago. Mickey Riemann in the Squire Shop. In second place, the Executone with George Johnson, the former offshore racer. Now riding the sponsons of that Lucero design unlimited hydroplane. Second place for the Executone Telephones. As I said earlier, George Johnson, one of about 8 people that have part ownership in this boat, so he knows what's at stake. He not only wants to race and to compete, but keep it together. George Johnson, third place on the left side of your screen, American Speedy Printing with Ron Snyder, and it appears, yes, that the Squire Shop with Mickey Riemann will lap him as they go down that back chute. And the shore very close to that back straightaway as you see the people. And I'll tell you, they're starting to get under some tarps. It's beginning to rain here in Evansville, Indiana. And rain pretty hard. Mickey Riemann in first place. He'll be glad to get back to the pits. Mickey Riemann to pick up another 400 points as winner of Heat 2A. 800 for the day. The Union Bay Squire Shop winning 2A. In second place, it'll be George Johnson in the Executone Telephones as he comes down. And boy, it's starting to pour here in Evansville. One of those typical Midwestern thunderstorms. As the heavens open up, it's time for some 85,000 people to try to find some cover here in Evansville. Here are the numbers now on 2A. Squire Shop now with 800 points. Executone Telephones, then American Speedy Printing, Raven Tires, and more problems for the new Atlas Van Lines did not finish. Whoa, I think it's time for Jim Hendrick and yours truly to find an umbrella. We'll be right back. Mother Nature has been kind to us. After a 30-minute rain delay, it looks like we'll be able to continue. Meantime, Jim Hendrick is down at the Atlas camp. Jim?
Jim Lucero, and of course the driver, Chip Hanauer. Bad luck, what happened?
We had a low oil level light. We can monitor that on the motor, and Chip was sharp enough to recognize that we had a problem there. And so as soon as the thing came on and stayed on, says, hey, there's no sense in sacrificing a very expensive motor for one heat.
You know, Chip, you have to give credit to this crew. They changed an engine quicker than I've seen anybody change an engine just to get you out there.
Particularly turbines. They do not change as easy as the Merlin or Griffin engines. So yeah, they do it again. They're the best in the business.
That's the story for the pits, Don.
And you can bet your house that they'll be ready to go next week in Madison. Here's the rundown for 2B now. The Renault, the Budweiser, Grizzlies Express, and Chet's Music for Heat 2B. There you see Chet's Music, and now it's a great start by the Renault and Milner Irvin on the inside. The bright yellow boat with the black tail. In second place right now is Chet's Music. You see the Budweiser way back. Jim Crumpfeld, the driver there. They must have something wrong with the boat. Coming down into the west turn. On the right side is the Miss Renault and Milner Irvin with an absolutely fantastic start, as you saw. He's in a position that he likes very much, the inside, and of course in the lead. That's the west turn as they go down that narrow back chute. It's the straight chute of the two. Of course, the dog leg coming down the main straightaway. Miss Renault in first place with a large lead over the second place boat, Chet's Music, and Todd Yarling out of Madison, Indiana. Coming in now to the east turn is the Renault, only a 2-year-old boat entering its second year of competition. Milner Irvin in his second year with the Jerry Shaniff team, sponsored by the Renault. Milner Irvin, an electrical contractor, by trade and completing left number 1. Lap speed 120 miles per hour. Second place, Todd Yarling, Chet's Music Shop. Third place, Scotty Pierce out of Seattle, and the wild ride, Grizzlies Express. And fourth place, a surprising fourth place, the Budweiser with Jim Cropfeld. Something wrong with that boat as they go down in fourth place, trying to save the parts and, of course, get into the final heat. But the Renault, owned by Jerry Shaniff, what a marvelous man he is. What a colorful owner. Of course, he is donating all of the money raised by that boat to the National Arthritis Fund. Jerry Shaniff has done a lot for this sport. Right now, his boat is in the lead in Heat 2B with a great shot at going into the finals, of course, if he can pick up some points here. That's a John Stoddicker designed hull. He built it himself out of Detroit, nearly all wood. And of course, it's powered by an Allison turbo engine. They've had a lot of problems in the past couple of weeks, handling problems, engine problems, but they decided coming into this race in Evansville that they'll simply go back to the basics, go back to what works well for that boat. This boat also a John Stoddicker designed hull. The Chet's Music, the Budweiser, as you see, going past Grizzlies Express and Scott Pierce. The Bud working along and trying to pick up maybe some more points as they head for the final. I gotta believe the Cropfeld is simply saying we got engine problems, but as long as I keep running, I'll get enough points to go into the final of the day. The Budweiser moving into third place. Jim Cropfeld in the Bud. And back to the leader, Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault. Crew Chief Jim Kurth said, let's get back to the basics. They talked it over with owner Jerry Shaniff, Milner Irvin the driver, and they have gone back to how it was set up at the beginning of the year, and it is performing much better now here in Evansville, Indiana, and on the bumpy Ohio River, as you see Jim Cropfeld and the Budweiser come cruising by. He's in third place. But in first place is that man, Milner Irvin, an electrical contractor by trade, has been a driver since the mid-70s, Rookie of the Year 1 year, really considered to be one of the finest, most professional drivers on the tour. And he's holding on to first place now as he comes down the main chute. A little choppier than usual now after that rainstorm. Things are getting kicked up a little bit as the Renault comes screaming down that dog leg to the left, the main straightaway here in Evansville. Very quiet engine, isn't it? You can tell. Uh-oh, looks like the Chet's Music Shop is slowing down. Todd Yarling, oh my, there's the Budweiser now screaming into second place. Jim Cropfeld in the Bud moving up slowly now into second place behind this boat, Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault. Done a lot of work on the systems in this boat, the plumbing, the handling. As you see, the wing is much higher than in 1983. Chet's Music pulling out onto the infield now. Todd Yarling at the wheel, co-Rookie of the Year last year. And Jim Cropfeld, Rookie of the Year a couple of years ago, driving this particular boat, the Budweiser. A brand new boat will be coming out for the Budweiser next year, being built in Seattle by designer Ron Jones. And the Renault built by John Stoddicker out of Detroit. There's the distance between your first and second place boats. So it looks like, oh, look at this now. The vertical stabilizer on the left side of this boat for Scott Pierce has collapsed. And as you can see, the horizontal stabilizer is barely holding on. But here comes your leader and your winner for Heat 2B. Milner Irvin out of Coral Gables, Florida, near Miami. Driving for Jerry Shaniff out of Detroit. The Miss Renault winner of Heat 2B, another 400 points for the Renault. Those 400 points gives Renault 700 for the day, tied with the Budweiser and Jim Cropfeld, Grizzlies Express at 450, and Chet's Music Shop at 169. Let's join Jim now with the winning owner and driver in Heat 2B.
Happy crew down here. Milner Irvin, the driver. Jerry Shaniff, the owner. First win of 1984. Satisfied?
Pretty nice, Jim. It's nice to be out there and race. I'd kind of like to have the Budweiser with us, so we would have had a good race.
Jerry, how do you feel?
Somebody said today started to look like Houston for the Renault again, and I can't believe it, but things are certainly going our way, and the boat is running very good. And Milner probably had to have the best start I've seen in years, I'll tell you.
And the crew chief and crew getting ready for the final heat. Up to you, Don.
Scotty, first of all, what happened on the tail?
Just fell off. It took quite a pounding, and I noticed it had fallen off, so I was just trying to get it finished. You know, the engine's fine. It's just the tail fell off, and that could have been a real bad problem. So, you know, I was trying to get it into the final, and I think we did accomplish that. So.
the final, and much more coming up in a moment. Stay with us.
Down here, we seem to have a meeting going on. I hate to interrupt you, Jim Harvey, just for a second, if you will. Everything running okay with the Squire?
Yes, we're just making an engine change, and we're considering running a different propeller for the final heat.
Okay, what about you, Mickey? Now, you've seen to show them the short way around the course. Hope to continue in the final.
Yeah, we've had a pretty good day so far. If our luck holds, hopefully we can do it in the final. Bud's going to be out there, and we all know how tough they are, so we're going to have to really be on the ball.
Well, thanks very much for letting us interrupt this high-level meeting just before the final. Now let's go over to the Budweiser, where Don is standing by.
Jim, we're over here now with Crew Chief Dave Culley with the Budweiser. Dave, what exactly is it? Strictly an engine problem in the last heat?
Yeah, we've had trouble with that engine in Syracuse, New York. We didn't have a chance to test it here. We still think it's a magneto problem.
Think this is old reliable now for the final?
Well, yeah, this is old reliable. This one runs pretty good, and we had trouble with the first engine, so we changed for the second heat and ran that engine, and we saved this engine for the final.
Okay, Dave, thanks for it. Now let's go back over to Jim. He's at Renault. It's going well for them over there.
Anything for you, Don, even to climb up near a hot engine with Jim Kurth of the Renault. Everything going to be all right?
Everything's okay. We're just checking it over and going right back out.
You were losing a little oil last time out.
Yeah, we lost some this time, and we'll lose some next time, too. There's nothing we can do. We got a leak in fitting.
You're pleased with the progress, though?
It's coming along.
Final heat is coming right along. As Jim Kurth says, all the boats are ready to go. Let's go back up to the starting line, and you, Don.
All right, Jim, we've heard from some of the men who make these sleds run. There's Mickey Riemann, the driver for the Miss Squire shop. Jim Harvey helping out. Jim Kropfeld in the Budweiser.
Have a nice ride, Chief.
Milner Irvin in the Miss Renault. Some of the gladiators for today's final. We'll have it in a minute. Don Poyer along with Jim Henrig, and now the final. The climax of today's racing, the Squire shop with the most points, followed by Budweiser, Renault, Speedy Printing, American Speedy Printing, Executone Telephones, and Risley's Express. Points mean nothing in the winner-take-all final heat. Officials for today's racing, the head man, Mike Noonan out of Kentucky. People working with him, Paul McKee, Gene Whip, Fred Alter. Also in the turns, Bill Noonan and Hank Kosciuszko. And all boats are started for this, the final of the day for Budweiser's Thunder on the Ohio 6. It's the Squire shop way on the inside. In lane number 2 is the Budweiser. American Speedy Printing on the way outside. Lane 3 is the Miss Renault. The Squire, the Budweiser, and the Renault in the first 3 positions, respectively. Mickey Riemann, he's been there all day in his first 2 heat victories in lane number 1. But look who's right next to him on his outside hip, the Miss Budweiser. There goes the Renault, American Speedy Printing. And around the turn, the acceleration of that engine they call old reliable for the Budweiser. Look at the acceleration as Jim Kropfeld puts his foot to the floor and accelerates down the backstretch. The Budweiser in first place in lane number 2. The Squire shop in second place. Mickey Riemann moving up. Good race here for 3rd and 4th place. American Speedy Printing on the outside. Renault on the inside. The Budweiser with Jim Kropfeld going after his 6th victory in the unlimited level. The Budweiser in first place, coming around to complete lap number 1. Budweiser, first place, second place, Squire shop, Mickey Riemann. Speed for the Budweiser, 124.8 miles per hour. He's hauling. 117 for the Squire shop. The Budweiser back to the west turn now as he goes around past that dog leg main straightaway. Coming around the turn, the skid fin digging in, some 4 tons of water being thrown up by that skid fin and propeller for the Budweiser. Lots of water to try to go around. American Speedy Printing. Oh, he's slowed way down. Looks like Ron Snyder's got some problems. Here's the second place boat, and there's the third, Milner Irvin. Risley's has gone dead in the water. That's Scott Pierce driving. So moving into 4th place is the Executone Telephones. But back on top of the pile is the Budweiser with Jim Kropfeld aboard out of Cincinnati, Ohio, in first place here on the Ohio River in Evansville, Indiana. The Budweiser. Lap speed 120 miles per hour. Second place, Mickey Riemann and the Squire shop. Third place, Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault. 4th place, Executone Telephones and George Johnson. As you see, pretty rough out there on the east turn. The Budweiser back to the west turn. Of course, they want to get a lot of national points now. After missing New York, they've got to catch up. This boat here, the Squire Shop, a good chance of taking the lead in national points with a good performance today in the final. There you see the Budweiser streaking down the back chute. Jim Cropfeld out of Cincinnati, a muffler company owner. One of the sporting, gamest drivers around. He was Rookie of the Year a couple of years ago when he went to work for Bernie Little. Bernie Little hoping to get possibly his 47th all-time victory today. Jerry Shane is the owner of this boat, the Miss Renault. Turbo Allison Charge with a raised wing over last year. This is the brand new boat for George Johnson, the driver, and Executone Telephones. They're in 4th place. Back to 1st place in the Budweiser. It is a little choppier out here now on the Ohio River, but that boat very heavy with those powerful Griffin engines. Shouldn't be any concern for Cropfeld. Back to Milner Irvin in that light Stoddicker design and built boat out of Detroit, Michigan. He's in 3rd place. The Budweiser out on top as he comes around now the east turn, the open end down here. The Budweiser with Jim Cropfeld in full control as you see that rooster tail a-flying as it comes down the main chute, that dog leg, main straightaway, past the start-finish line. He's not letting up that much, 117 miles per hour. 2nd place, Squire Shop and Mickey Riemann. 3rd place, the Renault and Eve Milner Irvin. They call him Mr. Clean. The Budweiser rolling along, the Bud in good control. Jim Cropfeld, as I said, going after victory number 6 here in the unlimited level. Back to Mickey Riemann and the Squire Shop. If he picks up another 300 points here in this final, he will take the national point lead, as a matter of fact. The Budweiser will move ever closer in the chase after missing New York. They had 1,200 points coming into today's race. There's the Renault again with the Milner Irvin. Mickey Riemann. Down the back chute they go on this, the final lap of the afternoon here in the finals of the Budweiser Thunder on the Ohio 6. Jim Cropfeld bringing it home here for what he hopes will be the 6th victory in his career with the Unlimited. The Budweiser wins it here on the Ohio in Evansville. 2nd place, Mickey Riemann, your new national point leader. And 3rd place, Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault. 4th place, Executone Telephones, George Johnson. So as the boats return to the pits, here's how the day stood. The Budweiser taking 1st place and getting back in the hunt in the national points race. The Squire Shop 2nd place and is the new national points leader. Renault coming in 3rd, Executone Telephones 4th, American Speedy Printing 5th, and number 6 for Risley's Express. Incidentally, here's what ruined and maybe ended Ron Snyder's day. Suddenly, on the right side as he was going into the turn, there you see a thrown rod in that turbocharged Allison brought a halt to any action for American Speedy Printing in the final. We'll return for a comment from the winning owner and driver in just a moment. Hats off to the Budweiser and driver Jim Cropfeld, picking up victory number 6 in his unlimited hydroplane career. Jim Hendrick has a comment from both Jim and owner Bernie Little.
Well, happiness is coming back after missing a race and winning, I would believe, Bernie Little.
Yes, it is, Jim. When you have a crew that the Budweiser has with Dave Cully and all those fellows driving clear to Seattle and back, putting that boat together, and they put the old reliable engine in, and a driver like Jim Cropfeld can't do nothing but be a winner.
Jim, you seem to improve as the day went on. You went faster in the final. What's the reason?
Well, you know, we had the problems from Syracuse, and we had a new rudder, new propellers all weekend. The boat handled differently than I've ever driven it, so I just kind of edged myself up to top speed, and by the last heat we were I got kind of used to the boat, and we just went out and ran. No problems at all.
No doubt about it. Budweiser the winner of Thunder on the Ohio 6, 3rd in the Budweiser series, and we congratulate you both. And that's a wrap up from here down in the pits. Back up to you, Don.
All right, Jim, nice job today. And now in the national point standings, the Squire Shop with their 2nd place finish today has vaulted up on top. American Speedy Printing was in 1st place before. Now they dropped to 2nd. The Budweiser in the hunt now. Chet's Music, Executone Telephones there in the top 5. Moving on down the line. Renault with 1,225 points, picking up well over 900 points today. Grizzlies Express, then the Tosti Asti, Raven Tires, and Atlas Van Lines. So that'll do it from Evansville, Indiana. Again, congratulations to the Budweiser, Jim Kropfeld, the driver, and Bernie Little, the owner. For Jim Henrik, I'm Don Poyer. So long from Evansville, Indiana.
This has been Budweiser's Thunder on the Ohio 6, brought to you by Firestone, offering master car care service at nearly 2,000 locations nationwide.